High flyers, I am so excited. Our first class is almost here. So before we get started and before you click on that link in this email to meet me in class, let's go ahead and take a few minutes to prepare ourselves before we get started. This will just help to minimize the amount of talking that I have to do in the live before we just jump right in. So first thing and most important, we want to make sure that our hammock is at the right height for us. So mine is already measured for me, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how we do that. Stand behind your hammock, and where you want to stand is where the fabric hangs from. Grab onto your hammock, both hands like a rope. Separate your hands so that they're just wider than the hip distance apart. This is important. If you have your hands here in the front of your hips, then when you walk forward and bend, they will get trapped, and most likely it will be a struggle to get them free. So go ahead, set yourself up in the beginning, separate those hands so they're wider than the hips here. Pop those elbows in front and push down onto the hammock here. So as we push down, we lift our heels off the ground maybe 1.5 inches, and we walk forward on the balls of our feet. Walk forward maybe 2 to 3 steps, and you're going to come to front belt tension. That's where the hammock will stop you, and it should stop you at your hip flexors. This is the part of the hips when you bend, where it creases, where your hips and your thighs meet. So this is how we start to tell if our hammock is at the right height. If the hammock stays in the hip flexors, in those hip bones when you take a bend and reach for the ground with those fingertips, when you release the hammock, if it doesn't ride up to your belly or fall down to your thighs, then you're in the right spot. You want to make sure, and if you want to be 100% sure, from here, take a couple steps back with your feet and your hands until you're back at center, where your hips are hanging right below where your hammock hangs. And here you should be able to drop your head and still have some clearance for the ground. As well, lift your toes and float here. So we're going to plant our feet on the ground and walk forward to come back to a standing position. Grab onto the hammock at your sides to steady yourselves and stand up. So like I said, if the hammock starts to come up and ride into your lower belly and your abdomen, you're going to want to make sure to lower your hammock. It's important that this is not where we do these exercises or stretches from. Also, if the hammock is too low, you'll want to adjust that hammock up higher. This will give you more stability with your movements. Okay? So now that we have an idea of where our hammock height should be, I'm going to give you a little disclaimer as well as a couple tips and maybe helpful assists for as we move forward and start this practice. So we are focusing on a front belt conditioning series, meaning a lot of what we're doing here in the upcoming weeks, we're going to be doing resting onto the hammock on our hip flexors. So this means in the beginning, you might feel quite a bit of tenderness, soreness, sometimes maybe even a burning feeling. These are all temporary feelings. This will go away. We're introducing pressure by allowing our body to hang, taking gravity and weight, and we're creating pressure in a part of our bodies that we normally don't have a lot of tension release, and we hold a lot of tension. Very beneficial to work through these feelings here. So with that being said, a lot of times the first couple times we practice front belt can feel like we can't go quite as far. So a couple hints for you. First, if you need to take a break, take the break. It's okay. I've designed the classes to be set up for you to jump back in, rewatch later, practice multiple times. These discomforts you feel will go away as long as you continue moving, trying, and working at them. So once you take a breather, once you give your hips a rest, come back in, join back in on the class, and you'll find that that will get less and less. The next assist, or maybe some people might say a cheat, is something I will recommend for a temporary use, meaning maybe the first couple classes. If taking a break doesn't help and you still find yourself unable to move forward in the class because of the discomfort, you can take a dish towel or a small hand towel and use this as a buffer, like I said, temporarily, here on the hammock. You'll rest it around the hammock. We'll go through the same motions as before, pushing down in the hammock, lifting your heels off the mat, walking forward, and then resting into the hammock here. So this will help to give you a little more cushion and help you to move through some of the beginning discomforts that you may feel. Once again, temporary. Another option is you can take the height of your hammock down a notch or two on the daisy chains, and that will just help you to find your ground and lift your hips off of the material a little bit easier as we get used to moving forward in the first couple classes. Like I said, the biggest help for all of this is going to be to stick with it, to show up, to be consistent. It won't take long. These discomforts will go away and you will start to see the benefits in the results. With that being said, and now that I've given you the disclaimer and some of the assists and the hints and helpful tips that I have, I do encourage you to document or journal this experience. This series is created so that you will see a result. If you show up and do these exercises and practice the conditioning here, you will see a strengthening in your core by the end of this 4 weeks. So it'd be interesting for you to see where you start, where you finish, and maybe where you are in between. All right, you guys, so that's about it. Now that we're all set up with our hammock height and a few helpful points and tips to get us started with our series, I will see you guys in the live Zoom class, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday morning. Remember, if you can't make it to the live, don't worry. I will be sending everybody an email with a link to access the class afterwards so you can watch, rewatch, and hopefully practice this many times in the upcoming weeks. If you have questions during the class, please know I won't be stopping during the actual class to answer any questions. However, there will be an option for you to add in questions that you may have along the way or even after class, and you can add that in. I will be able to view and see that, and I'll make sure that either after the class or following up in the next class to address the issues or questions that you may have. As always, please feel free to reach out to me by replying to this email or DMing me if you have any additional questions. I am so excited you guys are joining me. I cannot wait for our first class, and see you soon.